A visit by this doctor is all part of the drill. Here's your look at the new Trick or Treat Studios House of 1,000 Corpses Driller Killer Dr. Satan. Quayle began his career as an intern at the Willows County Mental Hospital. He performed unnecessary and crude brain surgeries on the patients. A mob of townspeople took justice into their own hands by hanging Quayle. His remains vanished, but his rumors of his survival circulate to this day. And you thought your hospital fees were killer. Before we get a closer look at Driller Killer Dr. Satan, let me thank the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios that did provide this sample that we can have a look at this review. If you guys have been interested to get any one of these figures for yourself or the incomplete set, certainly you can head on over to Trick or Treat Studios website as they are currently in stock. Driller Killer Dr. Satan, in the meantime, though, is about 5.5 inches in height, or the figure's 13.5 centimeters tall. While we are missing Tiny, we have made pretty good progress when it comes to the Wave 2 House of 1,000 Corpses figures, having already had a look at all of them. Let's bring in all those figures right now for comparisons, and just to show you as well that Dr. Satan may not be as tall, for example, as Otis, but he's about the same size, I would say, as the Professor. Other figures we also had a look at here. Here was the baby Firefly, just getting her to stand, and maybe what we might just do is move over Professor just a little bit, also bringing Captain Spaulding. Yeah, I've certainly loved looking at these figures. And again, I still can't believe the price of what they're selling these figures for. $19.99 a piece, $20 per figure. Then, of course, if you are interested to get the case is going to be $30, about $29.99. But that's at least going to give us the chance to finish Tiny. Of course, we will be looking at the collector's case in an upcoming review. Of course, talking about Tiny and talking about the collector's case would mean we'd have to fast forward through the review here of Dr. Satan, and we're not going to do that. Dr. Satan might very well be my favorite figure from all of Wave 2. The figure comes included once again with the arm for Tiny, and just to show you the other mirror flip to that, we got already the one arm. Now, this one arm, what's rather different about it is it looks like it's a gripping arm. But it doesn't actually, I don't think there's any accessories to come included with Tiny. I might very well be wrong by that. But this one does look like it might have the means to hold something. So I might see if I can maybe find myself an axe or a small knife. Something I could probably put in Tiny's arms. But we do have the arms, right? And we already have the legs. We only just, again, are missing the torso and the head. We're going to complete that with the upcoming review of the collector's case. Moving those to the side, the accessories, though, designated for Dr. Satan. He comes included with his tank. His oxygen tank, you can see, is painted nicely here in dark green paints. Some silver accents here for the dial. Some silver additional paint that's been added here for the hose that connects then onto the mask. Take your figure of Dr. Satan, flip him around, and you locate it very awkwardly here in the back. There's a hole that's been drilled right into his torso. Ouch! That's gotta hurt. So you're going to go ahead then and take the tank, and with this long peg that's provided, just fit that into the hole. Kind of dowel it in there if you need to get it in there as far enough in. And of course, you're going to then take the hose, and then very similar to the Professor, he actually has a little peg that you can see on the inside of it that then is going to plug into his face. Now, if you have it this way, obviously the mask is going to sit too low down. So what you may want to then do is just have the hose on the other side, and then you're just going to take the peg and you're going to fit that right into the hole of the mouth. Now, unfortunately, one thing that will come from this is adding then stress to the tank. So you may want to just kind of twist the tank just a little bit. So it's not a very stark bend, because again, you would not want that plastic to bend. What I might end up doing is deciding how I want to have this on Dr. Satan's face. And then maybe, if anything, just heating the plastic up, either through the means of hot water or means of hot hairdryer. Just run a few passes on that just to see if I can soften up the plastic just a little bit. Because again, I worry, but by having the hose stretch in such the extreme like this, that it may start to buckle, maybe start adding stress marks to the plastic here on the back. And I certainly don't want the hose on the tank to break. But certainly then attaching the mask to his face, making sure it's all the way in there, gives us a very nice completed look for Dr. Satan as he appears in the movie. Now, like Professor, you obviously can just leave it off and display it as without it. This looks like that character. I'm trying to think of the movie. Was it House by the Cemetery? It's a weird import horror movie. I'm sure somebody will let me know down below in the comment section. The face kind of reminds me of that. There's a hole down below there. It doesn't really have much in the way of a mouth when it comes to his face, but really stellar looking details sculpted into his face. Let's go ahead and put the mask back in, and it allows him to breathe, of course. Just plug that back in. And again, I like the sculpting. I really like the paint also that they awarded here for the eyes. Like the eyes, for example, have a little bit of nice blue added in there as well. He's got very Spock eyebrows. Do you notice that? These tiny caterpillars, not so tiny in fact, long strands of sort of a light kind of blondish brown. He also has the same kind of strands here on the back of the figure's head as well. The tank obviously is going to obstruct a little bit of the sculpting. Let's just move that here out of the way for a second so you guys can see. Some really nice paint that they've also painted here on the back of his body, kind of really selling the idea that this guy is very thin, very lean, very malnourished. You can see like there's a lot of cool browns that they added in there as well. I'll just get the tank back in his place though. Now he does have very similar, in fact, to Professor. He's got sort of like this frame that he adds onto his arm, but like the Professor, unlike the Professor that would have had it done in bones, Dr. Satan, on the other hand, actually does have like sort of, well, wire frames that he basically has this basically built then to his body. It's sort of more strapped in. You can kind of see like there's claws and there's like little wrappings there that wrap this across his body. It's got little speckles added in there also as well. It looks like there's also some settled blood. And you can also see, like, Dr. Satan's been busy, as there's blood just, like, splattered across the front of his apron. The apron is a separate piece of plastic, although you wouldn't be able to remove it. I don't think there's an available option to detach this. I think, if anything, it might just break the peg, so I'm not going to definitely do that. Just get the mask back into Dr. Satan's face. Again, the only thing I really worry about is, like, the hose for the mask. I'm going to have to definitely soften that up, I think, just a little bit, because I worry more about, like, right here. Maybe not as much from the front, but I worry like right here, that's going to maybe start to fracture the plastic. But again, I like the paint that they added to the frames that he has on here on his arms. Like, there's no posability at all when it comes to his arms. Dr. Satan, though, still manages to move at the shoulders, and he doesn't seem to have any wrist articulation or anything along those lines. But he does also have, like, again, like the apron already mentioned, is a harder plastic, kind of little pockets and stuff like that. I suppose, for all intents and purposes, could hold extra tools. But it looks like he already has quite a lot of tools of the trade. He's got, well, not really something you would want to be using on a human body, but he seems like a screwdriver. He's got some scissors. He's got a couple of pairs of scissors down below there. That almost looks like a spoon that he's got in the middle section. But there also seems to be some available areas there, too, that you might be able to store some other things if you actually have extra weapons or extra little accessories that you might be able to slide in there. Of course, down below he doesn't have any footwear. He just has himself some bare feet, but like the other, well, I guess the other two figures, because the Professor and Captain Spaulding all had holes provided on the bottoms of his feet. Dr. Satan, of course, also has that also as well. I overlooked, obviously, the one cool thing about this figure. I'm just going to put the figure down here for a second, because I did want to look kind of at what's all going on with the figure first, and then we would look at the one thing, the one gimmick that comes included with the figure. So, of course, he comes with this drill. This big, giant drill does actually have a functioning wheel on the back that when you rotate it, it actually does turn the actual drill portion of the drill. I think that's so cool, the fact that they would have actually found the way to incorporate that. It's not necessarily incorporated to Dr. Satan, but it's something at least that you can actually have displayed with the figure. You're going to simply just take the hand and see on the side, it's going to be like one of those old vintage toys from the 80s. You probably may have had a couple of these figures for yourself. You literally just take the hand and you slide it in. Now, if you have the hand really low down, he doesn't seem to hold the drill as well. So I would certainly say just kind of bring the hand up a little bit. It helps to balance and hold the drill. That's a little oversized for the rest of his body, but it works perfectly for like an old retro figure. Love the look of that. I think that's so cool, the fact that they included the drill. For the articulation here on Dr. Satan, we're going to move the head back and forth very carefully, though. The head is on just a straight swivel. But again, like rotating it, it may cause, again, some stress against that hose. The biggest part, again, and I just worry about the back of the tank there. Head does rotate again back and forth. All you're really getting is straight swivels on these joints also as well. So like the arms only rotate all the way around. Just be careful of the metal parts. Even again, they're not metal, they're plastic, but still be careful when it comes to rotating these around. These don't actually have a place that they plug into the back of the figure's body. While you may think that there may be holes like on the back of Dr. Satan's body where these very obvious pegs plug in, these plastic pipes don't actually plug into anything. So yeah, again, you can rotate the arms back and forth. The figure has no hand articulation, no wrist articulation or anything along those lines. The figure does have no waist swivel either. I kind of thought like the figure may have had like a swivel in his waist, but it seems to be like his waist is just molded right into his pants. The pants, the legs at least, do move back and forth this way. And again, like there's no ankle articulation. Dr. Satan, by far for me, is my favorite figure from the Wave 2 of House of 1,000 Corpse figures. Let's just go ahead and get him back down here. And now that he's fully equipped, getting him hopefully to stand, let's bring in once again all those other figures we had a look at. Captain Spaulding, also Baby Firefly. Bring in the recently looked at Professor. And, of course, then we also had Otis. The only thing then filling out the rest of this figure line is just the Build-A-Figure of Tiny, which, again, we don't have really much of Tiny to work with right now. Just loose limbs. just loose limbs. But we will be fixing that, of course, in the next review, where we'll be looking at the collector's case that Trick or Treat Studios are selling those separately. But not only, again, is it going to be a place where you can store all these figures if you have no plans at all to display them on the shelf. Why wouldn't you want to display them on the shelf? But if you have no plans to display them on the shelf, the collector's case will be nicely available. So, of course, you can store your figures all in there. And again, we're going to be getting the torso and the head. So at least in that review, while we've made little to no progress over the last 4 videos that we've been having a look at, 5 figures now, 5 videos we've been looking at, we've had little to no luck of actually building Tiny. We can at least now say we'll be able to build Tiny in the next review of the collector's case. Yes, indeed. The Dear Doctor, Dr. Satan, is by far my favorite figure of the House of a Thousand Corpses Wave 2 line. That also includes Captain Spaulding. I still really like the Captain Spaulding. And while this one doesn't have a built-in gimmick like Captain Spaulding or the Professor we looked at earlier, what I think I like about this one is there's just a lot going on here with Dr. Satan. Dr. Satan does have, again, not a built-in gimmick, but at least they took the time to include a drill that actually does have a turning wheel on the back of it. It does add a little bit of additional weight to the front of his body, but you can even see, despite his spindly little legs and tiny little feet, he still manages to hold himself upright, even with a big giant drill in his hand. The drill isn't so much the thing I'm worried about, but again, as mentioned in this review, again, I worry about the hose that connects the front of his mask to the back of the oxygen tank. I do worry that with the way it's bent right now, that it may start to fracture or bend the plastic. So what I might just do after this review is finished up, either heat the tube in hot water, or I might just take a few passes with a hairdryer. Enough just to soften up the plastic that'll already have the mask attached to the front of his face, but with the hose then soft enough, I can kind of manipulate the hose to where I want to have it. I maybe even bring the hose back just a little bit so that there is no risk that this may break down the road. Not that it will, but certainly from what I'm seeing for it right now, the way that it's bent right now, inappropriately, I think that the hose right where it's attached to the tank is likely the place where if it was to break, it will likely break. Either way, though, great looking figure from the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios. And again, I marvel at the fact that each of these figures are only $19.99 a piece. I may have also said that quite a lot over these several reviews, but just to again drive home the fact that this is not a big box store figure line. This is a line that you're buying directly from a site, and usually along with that, it usually means that the prices are a lot higher for figures like this, limited run or otherwise. Again, that the fact that they're offering them at the price that they are, and also going as far as actually including a collector's case that you can store these figures with, job well done by the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios. If, again, you guys are interested to get Dr. Satan for yourself or any one of the family members of the Firefly family, if you'd like to get them in your hands, in your collection, click the link down below in the video description. Also, as well, I'd like to thank the folks over at Trick or Treat Studios that did provide the sample of Dr. Satan, as well as all the other figures we've looked at over the last several videos. Big thank you to them for providing the samples that we had a look at. Also, if you guys enjoyed this video, why not hit it with a like if you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and certainly on board to see the collector's case, which again, that review will be coming up right after this one. Make sure you hit the subscribe button down below, and make sure as well you're turning on the bell notification to get all those friendly reminders from YouTube so that you'll know every single time a new video posts. Don't be the person that's saying, hey, wait, when was the last time this guy actually posted a video? And all the while, this guy's actually behind the camera been posting several videos. Don't be the person that's missing out on content. Be the person that's watching the newer content as it goes up. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.